Many brokers are toying with the idea of getting involved in the growing SMSF space. But what did our roundtable of industry experts have to say? Sinclair Taylor of Westpac believes it's important firstly to see the sector's growth in context.
I think it's worth putting the growth in context. So self-managed superannuation is worth $505 billion. So it's a third of Australia's $1.6 trillion superannuation pie. It's the fastest growing segment. However, property inside that hasn't really shifted materially. So if you wind the clock back 5 years ago, in June 2008, property investment inside SMSF accounted for 12.8% of the asset allocation. June 2013, 5 years later, it's only 15%, so 12.8 to 15. So the total pie is growing very quickly, but contrary to popular belief, it's not just being fueled by property.
In terms of what draws brokers into this space, some see it as a natural progression, whereas some, such as Richard Shepherd of Insenergy, were initially more hesitant.
It's taken a long time for the awareness to build, and the complexity makes it a little bit more difficult to convince clients to act, with reasonable speed. Anyone who has the aptitude to at least understand and be a reasonable trustee of their fund and just understand the basic requirements is a big opportunity for them.
For Stephen Fenton of Evolution Finance, getting into the space is a case of continually seeking competency to keep hold of your client base.
So if you're getting involved in more aspects of their life, you'll keep them. And I think also that brokers should seek competence, so always learning about new things, increasing their skill sets.
Helping the client understand, what their planner's talking about, what their accountant's talking about, and typically it has to be consistent what they're doing inside super or outside super. It does make them a lot stickier, as Steve said. Typically someone less qualified is going to have no idea what's going on and why it is. Yeah. And the client is more educated not to randomly refinance loans without any that are outside the plan, so to speak. So it does you make more of a close relationship with your client because you're advising them on a higher level than this is your home loan, good luck.
Craig Morris, Westpac's head of SMSF lending, pointed out that a perceived lack of interest or knowledge of the space may actually be brokers being aware that SMSFs isn't necessarily for them.
In the broker community there's growing awareness that perhaps it's not for everyone, and brokers will ultimately have to decide do they want to play in this space, and if they do, there's ample resources available for education and training. But if you're only going to do one deal every few months, you're not going to get that specialisation, and you're not really doing the customer any favours. So I think what we've seen in some brokers are specialising in this space, but compared to the total brokers accredited, it's a very small portion, and that may be fine.
Sinclair Taylor pointed out that the challenge is knowing the correct time to get involved with each individual client's SMSF process.
I think the challenge that the broker community faces is that there are so many different entry points to the transaction. You get very self-directed trustees who take no advice from anyone, go online and establish their own SMSF, go to an auction on the weekend and buy a property and then front a broker. Yeah. Then there are people who do the full advice process, there's people who just talk to their accountant only. So the challenge is that where do you pick it up? At what point do you really get involved? And what knowledge does that consumer actually have about the process? And I think that's where we all have an industry obligation to raise the bar.